could it be? For me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. 53-man rosters are set for now. My son watches this show called Truck Tunes. And one of the songs is about a street sweeper. And it goes, he sweeps the streets, picks up debris. And that's what we about to be, street sweepers. All right, we're not done yet. 4 corners? Really? Yeah, okay. 5 tight ends? Cool. I know they really like the position. Someone had hit me up. I think multiple people hit me up today, was adding me because the Bills released O.J. Howard. And I'm like, they're not interested in O.J. Howard. They really like this tight end group. But 5 tight ends? You didn't think you could sneak one of those guys onto the practice squad? Like, you didn't think you could sneak Curtis Hodges onto the practice squad? I really feel like we learned a lot today. But I'm going to draw some inferences. And some of this is why you come to me, because I draw inferences, and a lot of times really well. And so I'm going to give you a couple of things that I think they're thinking in terms of this roster that gives them the flexibility to do the things that they ultimately want to do, and really, in certain instances, have to do. So we're going to talk about that. I want to first start with Brian Robinson, though. I know you guys have all seen the images and some of the videos of him showing up at the facility today. That was so heartwarming. It brought a big smile to my face. I mean, that's the family dynamic that I was talking about yesterday and even the day before that. Like when once you become a member of a team, and I don't know if any of you have played sports before, you've been a part of a group, whether you're in the military and you've got, you know, the guys that you're going to battle with, or just the guys that you're training with. I mean, it forms a camaraderie and a band. You've heard band of brothers that can't be broken. You know, a guy could get traded. You play with a guy for 2 years in the NFL and he gets traded or gets cut. That's your brother for life. You know what I'm saying? If you guys have a tight enough bond, that's your bro for life. And so when you play sports, it really cultivates this family dynamic, especially a sport like football, really any sport for that matter, because football is a little different. So many more players. In you know, basketball, there's 15 guys. So you're tight knit, right? You know, baseball, same thing, 20 dudes. So you're pretty tight knit, right? Football is 53. It's hard to really establish a relationship with every single one of those guys. You're going to be tighter with some than others, but it's still a family type environment, right? So that's the thing that you saw there. And I absolutely loved every second of that. So glad to see him. I was not expecting him this fast, you know, and that's one of the things we learned today. And we'll talk about that as we go over these rosters, but that was a joyous occasion to see Brian Robinson enter the facility today. He brought Oreos because he had to bring snacks for all of the guys. And so that was his job, and he did. And that was pretty cool as well. Ron Rivera embracing him. How about Randy Jordan, his running backs coach, embracing him. Also, the assistant running backs coach, I don't know why her name escapes me at this very moment. Jennifer, I can't remember her last name right now, but she embraced him as well. And the smile on his face, priceless. I mean, there's a shot of him on the trainer's bench with J.D. McKissick, who we know is the funniest dude on the team, the guy that's the jokester. And J.D.'s, you know, probably saying something to him funny. And the smile on Brian Robinson's face, priceless. Priceless. And the first thing he said when he hugged Ron Rivera was, "I'm so glad to be back in the building." And you've heard people say the guy is serious about his craft. He loves football, eats, breathes, sleeps football. This is what he cares about the most, other than, of course, his family. That's the kind of guys that GMs yearn for. That's the guy they're looking for. The guy that, yep, heavy in his faith, he loves his family. But after those things, it's football. It's a lot of it. And that's the way Brian Robinson is wired. And you hear all the guys talking about how he's starting to open up because he's more of a quiet guy. I've heard, a lot of stories about Brian Robinson during the draft process about he's not a very talkative guy. He's one of those guys that kind of stays to himself. He's in his little shell. But once he gets to know you, similar to Montez Sweat, once he gets to know you and you're in, then all bets are off. You get to see the real Brian Robinson. And I think they're starting to see the real Brian Robinson. So anyway, I digress. It was so good to see that. Let's jump into the reason that you guys are here today, however, which is the roster. This was a big deal today. Jennifer King, thank you, John Graves III. Jennifer King, his assistant running backs coach, gave him a big hug as well. That was beautiful to see. The 53-man roster has been set. It is not etched in stone, okay? Please do not pour concrete over this 53-man roster, okay? Don't do that. Don't let it dry because this thing is far from set. And I'm going to explain to you what I think is going to happen. This is the closest I've ever come to getting the 53-man roster, all the way across the board. And I would have been even closer had Brian Robinson's situation not occurred, because I wouldn't have had 7 receivers. I would have had 6. I would have had the right 6. I would have had the running backs. They would not have kept Jonathan Williams. Ron pretty much said it without saying it. So they would have only kept 3 running backs, which we know that's what they wanted to do. They may have still kept 5 tight ends. I think everything else would have stayed status quo. I think the offensive line thing might have gotten tweaked because of the running back situation, right? I think they would have kept 10 offensive linemen. Ron likes to keep 10. I think they would have kept a 10th offensive lineman. Now, I don't know if I would have gotten that one right because Keith Ishmael ended up on the reserved injury list. So if they put him there, that there's more than likely an injury there. And this is the thing. Is that a significant enough injury that's going to keep him out the entire season, or were they just being selfish and greedy and not wanting him to be exposed to the rest of the league? And, will they ultimately have to go down the road and have an injury settlement with him, and he wants to go explore other options like we saw with Samis Reyes and a couple of other guys that have been released with injury designations? I don't know. We'll see. But that would have been my 10th offensive lineman. Clearly, he is banged up, so I don't know if they would have kept 10 or not. But anyway, let's get into the roster. I'm going to start first with my projection, and then we'll go into what actually happened. So I had 26, offensive players on the roster. It ended up being 27, as you can see here. And you'll see those 27 here in a second. But so the quarterback was easy. We got all 3 of those. Running back, there's a little bit of a difference here. So what I predicted was 3. Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick, and Jonathan Williams. Williams making the team only because of the Brian Robinson situation. What ultimately happened is that Brian Robinson is included in this 53-man roster. He's not starting the season on any list. Intriguing stuff. What that says to me, and Ron won't give us any specifics, nor should he. Okay, he needs to keep us in the dark here because we're too thirsty and hungry for information. You don't want to lock yourself into anything. You don't want to put any timetable on his return. Then we'll be starving and looking. Hey, Ron said 3 weeks. It's been 3 weeks. What's going on with Brian Robinson? Like, you don't want to put yourself in that box if you're Ron. You've been doing this for too long. You know how the media works. So don't do it. And he hasn't done that. And he shouldn't do it. So what Ron is effectively telling us, however, with Brian Robinson being on the roster, is that doctors have told him, and somebody sent me a message from I think it was from Garofolo from NFL Network, and they've been all over this thing with Brian Robinson, and essentially the news is as good as it could be for Brian Robinson, not just from a health standpoint, really, wanting him to be alive and him being okay, but the damage that the bullet has done to his knee or leg, rather, really insignificant. When you think about the damage that it could have done. Clearly, I told you guys this before. I'll tell you again, and I'll continue to say this until my face turns blue. There's no such thing as minor surgery. Okay. If you're the one going under the knife and you want to call it minor, go right ahead. I'll listen. But if you're not the one going under the knife, you can't call somebody else's surgery minor. Okay. You're not the one being opened up. Okay. But the thing with Brian Robinson is that reportedly, and this again is from Garofolo over on NFL Network, one of their insiders. It did no structural damage, didn't hit a ligament, didn't hit any tendons, didn't hit any bones or anything like that. Everything was essentially intact. Somehow it navigated its way through his leg without touching anything of note, in and out. So effectively, he dodged, again, poor choice of words, but in this particular case, he literally dodged a bullet hitting something that could have kept him out an elongated amount of time. And so thus, I think Ron got a good report from the doctors. This is me drawing an inference. I don't have any information here. I have no insider information. This is me just drawing an inference from what was done today with the roster. If there was any doubt as to Brian Robinson being able to play in the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season, you put him on a list, whether that's the PUP list, non-football injury list, which is what they had talked about. You put him on a list that's going to keep him out a bare minimum of 4 weeks, and you keep it pushing, and you don't have to hold a roster spot hostage for Brian Robinson. But if you think there's a chance that he could be back by week 3 versus Philadelphia, or even week 4 at Dallas, then you don't put him on a list. I've discussed this with you already. And I told you, I don't know. I've never been shot. I can't tell you the ramifications of being shot. And every situation is different. I had somebody message me and say, hey, I'm in the military. I've been shot. Or he didn't necessarily tell me he's been shot before, but he insinuated that he was shot. And he's like, yo, it's going to take him about a year to get back. And I'm like, cool. I appreciate that information. And then he hit me back and he was like, well, I stand corrected. Looks like Brian Robinson's a lot further along than we thought. And so what this says to me is that he is a lot closer than any of us could have imagined after hearing what we heard. And this is why I kept saying, hey, there's no telling how quick he could be back. And a lot of you are like, bro, he ain't coming back no time soon. And I'm like, we don't know anything. Okay. Ron is essentially telling us, hey, this dude is closer to being back than you think. Now, I wouldn't talk about week 1 or 2. I think those two are out of the question. Okay. Because even when you have a minor procedure to clean up some shit in your knee or your ankle, and it's just them going in and cleaning up loose particles, that's still 2 to 4 weeks, okay, for minor surgery. The man was shot. So in my mind, I won't see him on a football field for at bare minimum a month, okay? A month from now puts you week 2, week 3, range. He's got to get back into football shape. He's got to get moving around. He's got to be comfortable cutting, stopping, starting on that knee and that leg. So I would assume you tack another week on, okay? I think week 4 at Dallas is the first time we may, and again, just because he's not on the list doesn't mean that he's not going to miss the first 5 or 6 games of the season. It just means that they're comfortable with the news they've gotten from the doctor that says, hey, this guy could play, in a month and a half from now. Okay. A month and a half from now puts you in week 4 against Dallas. So if that's a possibility, if week 3 at home versus Philadelphia is a possibility, they want to keep that door open. Even if ultimately that door is slammed shut and locked and he's not available, they want to keep that option there. I don't blame them for that. Okay. Especially when you have the roster flexibility to be able to do that. So I turned out to be wrong because I didn't think Brian Robinson would be on the roster. I thought they would put him on a list. I thought it was going to be the non-football injury list, and they were going to be 3 running backs. I told you there could be 4, but I told you it'd be Jonathan Williams and Jarrett Patterson if it were 4. It ultimately was Ryan Robinson, but adding Jonathan Williams to the list with Brian Robinson being on it tells you that they know Brian Robinson is going to miss a specific amount of time. So in any event, 4 running backs, Brian Robinson being one of them, that makes me feel very good about the prospects of us getting him back sooner rather than later. So you go back to my projection, and I had 7 receivers, and this all got kind of, and I actually did this with you guys live, that I actually went back and changed what I thought was going to ultimately happen, because I said I don't see Antonio Gibson returning kickoffs. And so Alex Erickson came into play. He was not making my 53-man roster because I told you what Ron and company had already decided after the fumble in week 1 of the preseason. He had already decided Dax Milne is my punt returner, Antonio Gibson is my kickoff return man. That renders Alex Erickson useless, okay? His one job here in Washington was to be the return man. If we could not find anyone to do it, Alex Erickson would be that guy. Well, Ron and company had found their answer, and so Alex Erickson was no longer necessary. But with the injury to, the situation of Brian Robinson, I figured, well, now you need a guy to return kicks. And if you're going to have him return kickoffs, you might as well have him return punts while he's at it, right? Ron said, nah, not exactly. I'm good. So they kept the 6 that we expected. There's no surprise there. I wouldn't have had, Alex Erickson on the roster had Brian Robinson been A-okay, nothing wrong with him, no situation, everything status quo, it would have been 6 receivers. So they just kept it as is. I think where the biggest surprise that, caught a lot of us off guard was here at the tight end position. I had 4 tight ends: Logan Thomas, John Bates, Cole Turner, Amani Rogers. Okay. That's what I thought they were going to do. Obviously, Logan Thomas not being ready for week 1 is a real thing. And I think it forced them to keep an extra guy and go with 5 instead of 4, because you're not telling me that you love Curtis Hodges that much that he's got to be on the roster. I think all this says is that they didn't want to risk losing Hodges, by cutting him, someone else snatching him up, and not having him, and then having to bring somebody else into the building that doesn't know the scheme, that hasn't been here. You got 5 guys that have been here all summer long. So Logan Thomas, more likely than not, this is what Ron is essentially saying with this move is, hey, we don't think he'll be ready for week 1. So just to be sure that we're good, we'll keep a 5th tight end, and Logan will be able to not be active for week 1, and we'll feel good about the 4 guys that we still have available for that week 1 matchup. Now, also what I look at this is if you're going to go out and sign a corner, right, you're going to have to cut someone. Are we not? We're clear on this, right? Like if you have a 53-man roster and you want to add a player from the outside, you must first subtract the guy that is currently on the roster to then add the guy from the outside. So we're on the same page, right? Well, you have to do that somewhere. And if you don't give yourself space, if you don't allow yourself the flexibility to do that, then you're going to have to cut a guy you really, truly want. So in essence, they had to give themselves fat to then trim off, to then add a corner down the road. Do you see what I'm saying? So for me, there are two positions that I felt like they added on a bit of fat that they can then later go and trim if need be. Let's say that ultimately they find themselves needing another corner, which I think is definitely happening. Then you've got 2 positions. You're staring at one of them at tight end. I'll show you where the other one is a little bit later on in this breakdown, at least according to me, your man Louie T. Okay, I could be wrong about this. But I haven't been wrong about much, as you can see. So Hodges makes the team. I think he's here for fat purposes only. Also, Logan Thomas potentially being out week 1, still a possibility. This gives you the comfort of knowing if Logan has to miss week 1, possibly even week 2. I don't see him missing both. I think he misses only 1 week, if any. You feel good about the 4 guys you have, and you're not stressing about the tight end position, right? Offensive line, we go back to my projection. I didn't miss. That one to me wasn't all that hard. I initially was going to have 10. The situation with Brian Robinson kind of saved me because I would have had 10 offensive linemen. Who knows? They might have had 10. They may have gone with 10, but I knew the 9 guys that were going to make the team no matter what. Okay. I was only adding an extra lineman. I wasn't taking anybody else off. So these were the 9 guys. And, ultimately this list looks like the same 9 guys: Sam Cosmi, Charles Leno Jr., Cornelius Lucas, Andrew Norwell, Trey Turner, Wes Schweitzer, Sadiq Charles, Chris Paul, Chase Roulette. I figured that would be the 9, and that's ultimately what it ended up being. So this is a grand total of 27 offensive football players. I had 26. Where the extra one came in was at tight end. I did not anticipate them keeping an extra tight end and going to 5. And then they added an extra running back, and I didn't anticipate that either. But I had a 7th receiver. So because of Brian Robinson's situation, it definitely altered this roster. And I told you it was going to have ripple effects. But they ultimately kept Brian Robinson, added another tight end. And so we'll see ultimately what they decide to do, because we're going street sweeping. Trust me. We're not done. This is not the final 50. And Ron said it about 3 or 4 times. We're not done yet. Clearly. And why I say they're not done and clearly why they're not done, let's go to the defensive side. That's where the real intrigue lies. So here's my list and what I thought was going to ultimately happen. Defensive line, 9 guys. I was pretty confident about this. And I told you I'd seen places that had 10. I said, look, Justin Hamilton's not making this team. William Bradley King's not making this team over Shaka Toney. I felt pretty confident about my 9 defensive linemen, right? They kept those same 9 defensive linemen. So nothing to see there. The 5 linebackers, I told you guys, I said I could see an instance where they go with 4. But I said, I think they're going to go with 5. And I told you that the 4 guys I felt really confident in: Jamin Davis, Cole Holcomb, David Mayo, and Milo Eifler. Okay. I said, after Eifler, anything can happen. All bets are off. I said, I'm going to stick with Khaleke Hudson, but I knew they didn't love him. And I said, be on the lookout for DeJohn Harris. I told you guys they really liked DeJohn Harris. I didn't know if they liked him enough to make him a member of the 53-man roster. I'm still questioning, because, again, you can sneak DeJohn Harris onto your practice squad. You don't need to keep him, right? You don't need to keep him. You have no issue sneaking DeJohn Harris onto your practice squad unless he has declared that he is a core special teamer that you cannot live without. DeJohn Harris can end up on your practice squad. So let's go to what ultimately happened here. And you see DeJohn Harris is a member of the 53-man roster. And so for me, DeJohn Harris is another guy similar to the tight end position with Curtis Hodges. This is fat here that you can trim off if need be. You build the fat in so that if you need to go out there and find a couple of guys, you can trim off fat. I think they're going to trim off fat at bare minimum, one of the 2 positions of tight end or linebacker. And I think the first fat that they ultimately will trim off will probably be linebacker because of Logan Thomas's situation. Last year, they went with 4 guys. Like, you're going to put some guys on the practice squad, and you can elevate those guys when you need to. So there's no need to have your roster have 5 linebackers if you don't think you've got 5 guys that you need to keep. So I think that DeJohn Harris will be among the first to go if they find a corner that they truly like, that they feel like, hey, this is a guy that we can bring in, will help give us a little bit of depth. We think this guy's got some talent, and we feel like he can help us moving forward. I think they're going to ultimately find someone out there, add them to the roster, and DeJohn Harris will be the first guy that they'll cut, but they'll bring him back, put him on the practice squad, and he may be up on game days at times. So that one wasn't that big of a surprise. I had 5. I just had the wrong guy, but I told you DeJohn Harris was a guy that they really liked, and I wouldn't be shocked if he made the football team, and he did. So let's go back to my defensive projection, and I had 5 corners, and this is where I was way off base, okay? Now, I told you the cornerback position worried the shit out of me, and I'm even more worried now after seeing what they did. First of all, none of the guys that they cut, and I told you there weren't any surprises, none. There wasn't a single surprise that they could have made that I wasn't prepared for, okay? I told you there wouldn't be any big surprises because the roster was pretty much set. It was only about 5 to 7 roster spots at the back end that I wasn't 100% sure of. And so Danny Johnson and Corton Elder getting cut, not a surprise. I didn't think Danny Johnson was going to get cut. I'm going to be honest with you. That one was if there was any surprise, that would be it. But that's not even that much of a surprise. He was awful. If you want me to be honest with you, Danny Johnson was, for me, the biggest disappointment of training camp in the preseason. I was so disappointed in Danny Johnson because, as you guys know, I'm a massive Danny Johnson fan. Okay. And so I was advocating for Danny Johnson to get more snaps. I thought he played really well last year. And so I was team Danny Johnson. It looked like they were prepared to give him an opportunity this year. And Benjamin St-Juste gets a little banged up, doesn't play in the first preseason game. Well, here you go, Danny. Here's your chance. And man, did he wet his pants in that first game against Carolina. And then he doubled down and absolutely shit on himself in the third preseason game against Baltimore. And it's okay. You're willing to allow bygones to be bygones in week 1 of the preseason against the starters of the Carolina Panthers for the most part. And they didn't have all of their starters. There was no DJ Moore. There was no Christian McCaffrey, but you're willing to let that slide, okay? That he wasn't good in that first preseason game. You can't shit yourself in the third preseason game against 2s and 3s and get beat the way that he got beat for that touchdown. You have to go. And so I didn't have any problems with it. I was so disappointed in Danny Johnson this preseason. Really disappointed. The most disappointed I was in any member of this team was Danny Johnson because he had an opportunity in front of him and he did not seize it. As far as Corton Elder is concerned, he just didn't do anything. He was just there, right? Like, of all the corners that were hanging around, I told you guys, when I gave you my projection, I said, Corton Elder is going to be on this roster by default. He wasn't good. He wasn't terrible. He's the best of the worst. So he didn't do anything. He was just going to be here by default. That's the state of the cornerback position on this football team. We don't have anything past our first 3 guys. Well, they agreed. And so this is what the defensive backs look like, specifically the cornerback position. We know of the first 3, William Jackson III, Kendall Fuller, Benjamin St-Juste. They kept rookie 7th-round pick Christian Holmes. I didn't love that, that they kept him. Ron was speaking very glowingly of him. And a lot of times staffs will give their draft picks, and I've explained this to you before. They'll give their draft picks the benefit of the doubt. Hey, we drafted this kid. We want to see him succeed here. We saw enough in camp. We saw enough in practice and in the preseason that we think we can build with this kid, and we're going to continue to work with him. I'm not a Christian Holmes fan right now. He's got to show me. I haven't been at practice every day, so I'm going to take their word for it. But he can't be the first guy off the bench, okay? Christian Holmes can't be the first corner off the bench if something were to go awry with our first 3 guys. That's why they're going to sign, at bare minimum, 1 corner. I think they're going to sign 2, which is why I think ultimately they're going to trim off the fat at linebacker and trim off the fat at tight end. They left those 2 guys there intentionally so that when they go out street sweeping and find 2 corners, they're going to get rid of DeJohn Harris, add him to the practice squad, and they're going to get rid of Curtis Hodges and add him to the practice squad. That's what I ultimately think is going to happen. You leave the fat where it is so that when you need to, you can trim it off, because if that fat doesn't exist, guess what? When you find those corners that you're looking for, now you actually got to cut somebody that you really don't want to, that you're afraid you could lose. Now they don't have to worry about that. Nobody's coming after Curtis Hodges. Nobody's worried about DeJohn Harris, okay? And they know that. They could have put those guys on the practice squad, but they didn't, because they're going to go find themselves some corners, okay? They got to go corner shopping. They about to go street sweeping, okay? So corner, I told you before any of the preseason games started, the cornerback position worries me. After the first preseason game, I was terrified. After the second preseason game, I was mortified. After the third preseason game, I really didn't have any change there because we were looking at the depth, and I already told you the depth was suspect. So getting those guys getting toasted, right? Or as you guys like to say, baked ziti, and getting burnt, that wasn't a surprise. That's what they've been all camp, which is why I was so nervous about the depth or lack thereof. So they're going to do something. Trust me, okay? They're going to do something. They're not done. Cornerback for me is where they're going to spend the most time scouring the streets and finding someone or two to add to the roster. And then you go back to my prediction for the safeties. That one to me was a no-brainer. Jeremy Reeves was the only guy that, was up in limbo, and he really truly wasn't in limbo. There, Stephen Parker had that one game, but he never really threatened Jeremy Reeves. Ron Rivera has a soft spot for Jeremy Reeves, and Jeremy Reeves, let's be honest, he earned it. He was probably the most consistent defender all preseason long. So Jeremy Reeves earned that spot for the very first time in his career as a Commander, and he's been here quite a while as Jeremy Reeves. He earned his way onto the 53-man roster, and he deserves to be here. So right now, there are only 23 defensive players. Come on. They don't want 27, 23, and 3 being the breakdown, right? When it's all said and done, I think it's what I initially predicted, 26, 24, and 23. Or excuse me, 26, 24, and 3. 27 to 23 is too big of a disparity. They're going to close that gap a bit. I firmly believe they'll trim off a linebacker. They'll trim off a tight end, and they'll add 2 corners, and I don't know, maybe Christian Holmes becomes a casualty. I don't think he will. I think they're going to keep that kid around for a while. We'll see. They could just trim off the fat here on the defensive side and get rid of DeJohn Harris and Christian Holmes, add 2 corners in, and now you got 5 corners. Holmes will be on the practice squad, and you can bring him up if you want. But they drafted Christian Holmes. They're going to keep rocking with him, see what he can do. And so that was the biggest, whoa, okay. So you're going to cut Danny and you're going to cut Corn Elder. Okay. Ballsy, but I like it because neither one of those guys earned a roster spot. They were just around, really disappointed in Danny. I can't say that enough, kind of like how I felt about Jimmy Moreland. I had high hopes for Jimmy Moreland going into the offseason that he got cut. And then he wasn't good in that preseason. You guys remember, Jimmy Moreland was not good in that preseason. And he got cut. And a lot of you were upset. And I'm like, you're upset for what? Jimmy Moreland wasn't playing well. Anyway, and then the specialist, this one, again, self-explanatory. We don't really need to spend any time here. We knew the 3 guys. It wasn't going to change. And so that is the 53-man roster in essence. So what I've essentially said to you is that they're going to go out here and find help. Okay. They're not done. Ron has made it abundantly clear they are not done. And so when it's all said and done, they're going to add it at a bare minimum 1 more corner. Okay. They're not going into the season with 4 corners. It's not happening. This is not linebacker. This is not optional. You do not have a choice. You have to add a 5th corner. Okay. Can't go into the season with Christian Holmes being the first guy off the bench should something go awry with one of the corners. You can't put yourself in that position. To me, you need to add 2 more corners, to be honest with you, just to be on the safe side. I don't want Christian Holmes anywhere near the field. He has not shown me anything that says I'm ready to play NFL football. And if Ron and Jack and Scott and company are serious about making this a 10, 11, 12 game winning team this season, you can't afford to trim off fat at one of the most important positions on the field, being corner. You can't cut a corner there. Okay. You have to go out there and find help at cornerback. If you really want this team to compete, you got to go find cornerback help. And they will. I'm trusting that they will find 2 guys that they know can play at this level. And they'll bring those guys in here. And again, we're hoping that those guys don't have to play a significant role for us. Because if they do, then something's already gone horribly wrong anyway. But in case of an emergency, you would love to break the glass and know that, hey, this extinguisher is full to the brim. And if I pull this lever, guess what? It's going to squirt and it's going to work. Right now with Christian Holmes, I break that glass, that canister is empty. Okay? You're literally spraying fumes, but nothing's really coming out. So I assume that they're going to do some things. And the interesting thing is Brian Robinson being on the roster. That's very interesting. We'll find out how important that is. It's interesting right now. We'll find out how important that is. And let me say something else Ron said at the podium today. Ron said that Antonio Gibson is still in the mix to return kickoffs. No, he's not. Okay. No, he's not. See, this is the thing. Ron said that because he is in the mix when Brian Robinson comes back. He'll go back to returning kickoffs. Okay. He'll go back to returning kickoffs when Brian Robinson is healthy. If they feel like, okay, we want to insert Brian Robinson back into the starting lineup. But as of right now, Antonio Gibson has been relieved of his kickoff return duties. And Ron even went as far as to say, yeah, Dax Milne, because he was asked specifically about Dax Milne and his, punt returning abilities. And he said, yeah, Dax can do that and return kickoffs for us if we need him to. Of course he can, which is why I was like, I'm keeping, an extra receiver because they're not putting Antonio Gibson back there now. You're not going to put your starting running back on kickoff returns. Nobody does that, okay? And that's not smart. So, yeah, he's in the mix. When Brian Robinson comes back, maybe. But as of right now, Antonio Gibson is your starting RB1. He's your RB1, essentially. And until Brian Robinson is back and they feel comfortable and confident in his abilities being back on the football field, he'll be our number one running back. Well, Antonio Gibson. And he will not be returning kickoffs. So that's a little food for thought as well. So I want to finish with this. Then we'll get to the comment section and we'll get out of here. I went back and I watched the film from that third preseason game. That should have been a catch. My initial intuition about Dyami Brown and the half-hearted, one-handed attempt, that bullshit that he did, I don't know what the hell he was doing. That ball should have been caught. That was a good ball from Sam Howell up the sideline. There was no reason for that not to be a touchdown. None. No excuses. Dyami Brown's got to tighten the hell up. He really does. And I'm an advocate for him. I was not a big Dyami Brown fan coming out of North Carolina. Didn't love the draft pick. I wanted to get faster. They got faster. I think he can run by people. He's shown us the ability to do that. Sam shortchanged him in the second week against Kansas City. And then last week, he shortchanged Sam in return. And at some point, we need Dyami to make a big play. He made one big play in his rookie season when he caught the deep ball against Dallas. But you know who else, had a couple of big plays, a deep ball against Dallas in his rookie season, and then the monitor fart. Yeah, you guessed it, Josh Doctson. So I need Dyami Brown to step the hell up. And now that the beauty of it is he's going to be put in a position where he's an afterthought. And frankly, Cam Sims deserves his snaps. Just going to be honest with you. Until he shows better, Cam Sims deserves Dyami Brown snaps. Tell me I'm wrong. I'm rooting for Dyami. I want to see him catch a deep ball, get behind the defense, make a big play, build his confidence. But he's got to tighten up. And lastly, there was one more thing I wanted to mention to you guys. I can't remember what it was. Maybe just talking to you guys will jog my memory. There was one more thing that I wanted to mention, just to clean up, tie up a loose end. Oh, that's what it was. So a lot of you recommended that I go watch the Kurt Warner film breakdown of Carson Wentz. And you guys insisted, and I told you I was going to, and I did. And it was very informative, as all of you said, and you guys were spot on. It was great to watch. I enjoyed every second of it. And it even prompted me to go back and watch some of, Kurt's critiques of him when he was in Indy. So very interesting stuff. A lot of it I already knew. The footwork thing was that's out there. Everybody knows that Carson Wentz is one of these guys that doesn't, have the best mechanics, a lot of upper body and arm strength and, doesn't always, move his feet to his target. And a lot of that is what Kurt was talking about when referring to Carson Wentz and some of his inaccuracies. And one of the plays that drove me nuts in that second preseason game was the throw to Antonio Gibson on that out cut, that speed out. And, Kurt was like, you got to have this throw. And he's right. And I said that, like, that's a layup in the NFL. You can't miss the bunny, right? They're giving you the layup. You got to put the 2 points up on the scoreboard and put the ball in the basket. And he didn't do that because that would have moved the sticks. And instead of it being 3rd and 5 and then throwing it to Curtis Samuel and having it broken up and then having to punt, you move the sticks and now you got a fresh set of downs in Chiefs territory and you're on the move. 1st and 10 at the Chiefs 43-yard line. It changes everything. Instead of you being 3rd and 5 from the Chiefs 48 and then not completing that 5-yard pass, and now you have to punt. So, and that was all footwork. He didn't take his feet there. His feet stayed stationary, and he just threw it with his upper body, and the ball sailed. So he has to be better. There have been, some things that have happened with Wentz throughout his career. And one of those things is, some questionable decision-making. We know all of this comes with the Carson Wentz package. For those of you that think it's just going to be all touchdowns and celebrations and good decisions, you're wrong. Okay. There will be ups, there will be downs, there will be games where you want to strangle him, that he may cost us. There will be misses. There will be inaccurate throws where it may get completed, but yards after the catch were there to be had, and a guy had to make a diving stab, or he had to climb the ladder. And instead of him catching it on his feet on the ground and running, he had to leave his feet, allowing a defender to catch up to him and make the tackle, and thus leaving another 15 to 20 yards additionally on the football field. Those things happen with Carson Wentz. So just be mentally prepared and ready for that. I'm ready for those things. I don't know about you, but he's still light years ahead of anybody we've had at the quarterback position since Kirk. So none of that stuff phases me at all. It's going to be frustrating. Damn right it will be on game day when you're competitive and you want it, and there's a 2nd and 4 and he misses an open receiver and now it's 3rd and 4. We don't convert. You damn right I'm going to be pissed off. But mentally, I already know to expect some of those things. So it was a good watch. I would recommend it to anyone out there. If you haven't watched that, check it out. And, do yourself a favor and be a bit more in tune to what's going on with Carson Wentz. Anyway, I digress. So let's get to the comment section, see if I got any super chats. I think I have a few, and then we'll get out of here once we knock those down. See, I got a super chat here. This is from TrueFan73. Thank you for the super chat, TrueFan73. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. TrueFan73 writes, B-Rob like a real-life superhero. His actions, recovery, and quick return should motivate us all, especially the Commanders season. #HTTC. Now, I won't go as far as to call him a superhero. It does seem a lot quicker than any of us would have imagined, but he's still not out of the woods yet, right? Like I would imagine that it was the best case scenario possible, right? With what he has just gone through, that it didn't hit any tendons, any ligaments, any bones, or anything that would have kept him sidelined for a much longer period of time. That said, he still had a hole in his leg, right? And he still had another shot that hit him in his gluteus maximus, right? So there's still work that has to be done to get back to where he was prior to the robbery attempt. And so I would imagine that it's going to take some time, but I think it's a lot sooner. We weren't expecting to see him in the building 2 days after something like that transpired. And I think that's why we're so optimistic. You couple that with what Ron and company did today by keeping him on the 53-man roster, and you say to yourself, shit, maybe he's a lot closer than we all thought. So it's great news. Good to see him. Great news. But we'll see. he could still miss 6 to 7 games before, he's ready to rock and roll. So he's not out of the woods yet. But again, as far as best case scenario goes, I think we've gotten that. All right. Thank you for the super chat. True Fan 73. The Talk Heavy Podcast. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. The Talk Heavy Podcast writes, where's Torrey McTyer? Was he ever released? So Torrey McTyer was on a 1-year deal. After the season, he was released because he was injured. So I don't know if he's latched on with another team. We don't even know if he's fully healthy yet. His injury was sustained in week 4. He could have torn his ACL, his MCL, his PCL. He could have done damage to his patella like Chase Young did. And it could be a serious deal, and he could still be mending as we speak. So there's no telling where Torrey McTyer is, but clearly he's not here. So let's see. Tony P56, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Tony P56, writes, poop, vomit, and piss punchlines are hilarious every time to me. Well, I think I might have dropped 2 or 3 of those today. So you probably were entertained thoroughly today. So there you have that, Tony P56. J. Kurt 20. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. J. Kurt 20 writes, man, Lou, you see the Eagles trade? Shaking my head. They are stacked with talent. We just sitting here doing nothing. We have major depth issues. I mean, the Eagles told you how they felt about this year, with the moves that they've made, even down to signing James Bradbury to a 1-year deal. You only do that if you think you're in a position to win a Super Bowl. Like, if you think you're close, but you're not there yet, you're not signing a corner to a 1-year deal. You're not doing that. You're signing him to that 1-year deal because in your mind, you're thinking, hey, this guy gives us a chance to go all the way, and he's a missing piece. We add him, we got a chance. And to be honest, the Eagles have a chance. Everything that I've said about the Eagles is predicated solely on the success or failures of Jalen Hurts. I don't think he's going to be very good, which is why I don't think the Eagles are ultimately going to be very good. But if he's good, I told you their schedule is just as soft as ours is, okay? And their roster is loaded. If he's good, if they're running the football, if they're relatively healthy, if A.J. Brown is as advertised in a Philadelphia Eagles uniform, if Jalen Hurts can stand in the pocket and deliver the football, that's a 12, 13-win football team. And I've already talked about the landscape of the NFC. It is not what it's been in past years, okay? I don't think the Packers are going to be as good. I don't think the Bucs are going to be as good. Brady's head is not in it. I've already stressed this, okay? When you take off 2.5 weeks during training camp to spend time with your family, you're not all here, okay? Brady's not all in at 45 years old. He's already signed a post-career contract to be in a booth. Brady's head is not in it this season. The Bucs have offensive line issues. Shit's wide open in the NFC. Yep, the Rams are still good. Matthew Stafford is coming off of shoulder surgery, okay? And oh, by the way, before the shoulder surgery, Matthew Stafford led the NFL in interceptions. So the Rams aren't like tailor-made to repeat. They are literally the Bengals offensive line protecting for one more second away from Joe Burrow finding a wide open Jamar Chase after, their star corner has fallen down and Jalen Ramsey on that final sack of the game. They're 1 second away from having a bomb dropped on their head and losing that Super Bowl. So the Rams are no, big time repeat team for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not a massive repeater. I look at the NFC and I say, this shit is wide ass open. Who wants it? And that's why I'm like, I'm looking around. I'm saying, hey, I know that's not what we're about, right? That's not what we do. But I'm like, hey, why not? A lot of shit has to happen for it to even be a discussion around these parts. But shit, why not? The Eagles are going for it, and they should. If you're a team and you think you're any good in the NFC, you should be going for it this year. I can't speak to what it's going to be like next year or the year after that or the year, but I can tell you this year, like I can tell you this in the AFC, shit's not going to be easy for a decade out there with Allen and Mahomes. And I don't know where Lamar Jackson's going to end up, but with Lamar and Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow and Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson going out there, it's going to be murderer's row out there for years, for at least the next decade. That's not the case in the NFC. How many more years does Aaron Rodgers have? This is it for Brady this year. Those are the two best teams in the conference along with the Rams. And I don't trust Matthew Stafford. I really, truly don't. And I like Stafford a lot. But my thing is, and some people have killed me for this. I'm going to say it because I believe it. What's the biggest difference between Matthew Stafford and Carson Wentz? If anybody has the answer, let me know. Because I see a very similar quarterback. Honestly speaking. All right, I'm just going to keep it a buck with you. I see very similar quarterbacks. Now, maybe I think Matthew Stafford's a little bit more clutch than Carson Wentz. You give him the football with the game on the line, and I've seen Matthew Stafford do some magical shit with it. Not necessarily seen Carson Wentz respond the same way as Matthew Stafford. So I will give Stafford the clutch gene a little bit more. But I'm going to be honest with you. Matthew Stafford led the league in interceptions last year. Matthew Stafford did exactly what with the Detroit Lions before he got to LA? You put Carson Wentz on the Rams and he stays healthy? Is it not conceivable that they do the exact same thing they just did? I'm not saying, I'm just saying. And there were some big time throws by Matthew Stafford in the playoffs, right? So I don't want to demean nor belittle Matthew Stafford or try to minimize what he did. He was a massive part of their success last year. But I'm saying, why can't that be us? Now, our defense isn't the Rams defense. We don't have Jalen Ramsey. We don't have Aaron Donald. We didn't add a Von Miller, right? But I'm not saying, and our coach isn't Sean McVay either. Let's keep that a buck as well. But I'm not saying, I'm just saying. That's all. The NFC is open for business. And the Eagles are like, we're putting our bid in. Okay? NFC's open for business, and we're just going to put our bid in early. We're going to add all the pieces that we need to give us a chance to compete, and we'll see where the chips fall. And the Eagles are in a great spot. It all hinges upon the play they get out of the quarterback position. If they get Jalen Hurts, and everybody keeps saying the same shit, regurgitating like everybody's got batteries in their back. You know, with Carson Wentz, he's been let go from two different teams. He's third team in 3 years. He can't be any good. Nobody, the Colts didn't want him. The Eagles didn't want him. The Eagles took the biggest salary cap hit in league history at the time to get rid of him. This guy's got to be terrible. Take the batteries out your back, man. Stop listening to all these clowns. With Jalen Hurts, this is the first time since high school that he's had a different offense, that he's had the same offense 2 years in a row. You know, all the way back to high school. He's always had a different. I don't want to hear the shit. I don't care that he's had a different offensive coordinator. That's not the reason on 3rd and 8 his ass can't stay in a pocket and make a damn accurate throw. That has nothing to do with two different offenses in the last 2 years, or 4 different offensive coordinators in the last 4 years, or 5 different offensive coordinators in the last 5 years. Has nothing to do with him seeing a guy open 8 yards down the field and throwing it out of his reach. But we'll see. Now that he is in an offense for the 2nd year in a row, for the first time since he was in high school, he's supposed to take this monumental, legendary leap. Well, we'll see. If he does, the Eagles are Super Bowl contenders. Let's see. Colton Wheeler, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Colton Wheeler, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, writes, Lou, am I insane? Normally, when someone asks me that, they're not insane. We'll see if you qualify for insanity or not. Am I the only one that thought Patterson was a damn solid backup? He was worthy of making the roster even in a limited capacity, in my opinion. You're not insane, but he wasn't going to make this football team. And I explained to you, and I thought I explained this rather well and convincingly, but I'll explain it again because Ron said the exact same thing that I said to you 2 days ago, which is Jarrett Patterson is a solid third down back. They've put him in a box with his size, his running style, his ability to catch it out of the backfield. He showed us this in the third preseason game. He caught it well. He ran it well, but he's a third down back. They view him as a J.D. McKissick backup. They don't see him as a first and second down backup, which is what they need now, okay? So with Brian Robinson being on the shelf for an indefinite amount of time, and we don't know what that number is right now, Antonio Gibson goes back to RB1, and now you need someone to back him up. We saw that Jarrett Patterson isn't that guy. He's not 6'1". He's not 230 pounds. He's more like J.D. McKissick. And so if we needed a J.D. McKissick backup on the roster, he's your man for the job. But they're not looking for that. They're looking for an Antonio Gibson backup, which is why Jonathan Williams makes the most sense, which is why I told you Jonathan Williams will make this football team. They like him, and he fits the profile of the running back that they're looking for to back up Antonio Gibson. So that's why Jarrett Patterson isn't here. And Ron even said Jarrett Patterson and Jonathan Williams were neck and neck during camp in the preseason. You know, they were right there with one another. He said the biggest difference is they're different backs. And that's his way of saying Jonathan Williams gives you the first and second down in between the tackles bruiser that we need backing up Antonio Gibson. And Jarrett Patterson would be more of a slasher outside of the tackles, throw it to him out of the backfield, J.D. McKissick type of replacement. And they're not looking for a J.D. McKissick replacement right now, okay? So that's essentially what Ron told you, and that's what I told you a few days ago. Let's see. So you're not crazy. You're not insane. That's just the way it is. And it's like that, and that's the way it is. Red Wings 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, am I the only one? There's a lot of am I the only ones today? You're probably not the only one, right? He says, am I the only one not shocked about Williams making it over Patterson? He showed some stuff last year and plays very similar to B-Rob. Still want to see Patterson stick around, though. Well, so both of you guys can't be the only ones or can't be feeling like you're in the minority. Like one thought that Patterson should be, and then the other one's like, well, you know, Williams seems to be a really good choice. Are you guys not feeling that way? I thought he showed some things last year. I thought he showed some things in the preseason this year. I like Jonathan Williams. So do they. And so, yeah, he does have a very similar style to, you know, Brian Robinson, and that's why they kept him. You know, that's why he is here. And so, and I too want to see Jarrett Patterson stick around. I would love it if he was able to, you know, be put onto the practice squad. And I don't think anybody's eyeballing our stuff, but you can never be too sure, you know, with a guy that has played as much as Patterson played last year and then played in the preseason this year. You can never be too sure about that. But I would love to see Jarrett Patterson be back on the practice squad as well. I would love to see that because that would give us another guy that, in the event that anything happens to JD, we got a guy that we feel comfortable sticking into the game and him giving us a little something. Thank you for that super chat, Red Wings 01. Got another one here from Red Wings 01. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Red Wings 01, who writes, also, I highly recommend you and everyone watch Samuel Gold's recent video on our third down defense. He also has a Wentz video worth a look. I may check that out. I may give it a look, but I kind of feel like I know what the problems are with our third down defense. That's why I'm so bullish. I feel good about not only this team, but us turning it around. But again, I told you guys it is concerning, and there are some things that should concern you, but I felt good about what we've done, thus far. And just guys needing to execute is really what it boils down to. Guys needing to find a way to get the job done. Everyone has a job to do, all 11 of you. Everyone needs to do their job. And if you do your job adequately, we should be fine in some of these situations. But, I'll definitely give it a look, see, and just see if it kind of matches up with what I've been seeing and what I think anyway. Thank you for that, Red Wings 01. John Perez, my guy. JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. John writes, Lou, JP, good to see you as always. Likewise, my man. Likewise. Happy to say I'll be at Washington versus the Giants at MetLife on December 4th. He says, I'll be sitting behind the left goal line in section 148. Well, hopefully we get a little pan shot of you in the misses. I'm assuming that's who will be in attendance with you. Hopefully it's not too cold because that's a week 13 game, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, you know what it is. You know what I always tell people that's going to the game. You got one job and one job only. That's to bring home the dub. Make it happen, JP. Looking forward to seeing you there. Hopefully you do your job. Bring that dub home, and then we go into the bye week with a Coke and a smile. That's the goal. But we got a long way before we get to week 13, my man. That game could be rendered useless if we don't take care of things in the first 12 weeks of the season. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. Let's see. Lance Eubank, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Lance, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, writes, am I the only one that's looking at Jimmy Moreland? I mean, I don't know. Are you? I mean, I'm not looking at Jimmy Moreland. I mean, he wasn't good enough to be here last year. What makes you think he's good enough to be here this year? Last time I checked, Jimmy was getting, cut from another squad. I don't know if he's on a roster right now. He was on a roster in the camp, but I'm not looking at Jimmy. I can't speak for anybody else, but again, he wasn't good enough to be on this team last year. So what's the difference between this year and last year? Honestly, the roster was a lot worse off last year, and he wasn't good enough to make it last year. So I don't love the cornerback position, obviously, but Jimmy Moreland is definitely not the answer. I can tell you that. Let's see. Red Wings, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Red Wings 01 writes, only ones stand up. It's a lot of only ones. It won't be only one person that stands up, because I've read at least 3 comments that have said, am I the only one? So, I mean, I don't know. Are you? I can't say with 100% certainty that you are. I think 2 out of the 3 comments, I can pretty much assure you're not the only one. There are a lot of people that are Jared Patterson stands that feel like he should be on the roster. And then there are a lot of people that feel like, Jonathan Williams has shown some things. Showed us a little bit last year, showed some in camp this year and into the preseason, like Jonathan Williams. So I think those 2 comments, you're not the only one. That last one, am I the only one looking at Jimmy Moreland? You might be the only one looking at Jimmy Moreland. I can tell you this, when he got cut last year, there were a lot of fans that were up in arms about Jimmy Moreland no longer being here. So, yeah, I mean, it happens. Was Jimmy last year or the year before? These things start to kind of run together. Jimmy was last year because he was here Ron's first year in 2020, because if I'm not mistaken, Jimmy had a pick in that nope, the 2 picks were Fab Moreau and I think one was Jimmy. It was Fat Moreau and Jimmy, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway, it was last year that Jimmy got cut. Now, there were a lot of fans that wanted Jimmy around and didn't think he should have been cut last year. So, maybe you're not alone. Maybe there is someone else out there looking at Jimmy. Anyway, that's nor here nor there. John Perez, my guy JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. JP, my guy. John Perez writes, there's a chance Chase Young returns week 5 versus Tennessee. Could be a huge inspirational boost for a defense looking to bounce back from a lousy 2021 season. I'm hoping they come out of the gates ferocious, biting, ready to take a Jaguar's head off, and then go the next week and put a nice dent in the Detroit Lions ribs and start eating there as well. I'm hoping they come out real vicious to start the season and don't wait for Chase Young to give them a boost in week 5. If we're still lackluster and Chase has to come give us a boost in week 5, and we're not sure if he'll be back by week 5. That's just the first game he's eligible to come back. Then we're in trouble. We're in a lot of trouble if that's the first, game that we actually start to see the defense step up and play some good ball. So hopefully Chase adds himself to a defense that's already playing some good ball. Maybe not great ball, but good enough football. And Chase comes in and takes us over the top and we start playing phenomenal football. That's the hope. But once again, we'll see what happens. Anyway, let's see. If you're out there, do me a huge favor and hit the subscribe button for more great content. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And also, hit the like button if you haven't already done so. Over 550 of you out there, still not at 200 likes. Again, if you're watching this and you like this video, support, okay? Doesn't cost you a thing to hit the like button. So if you would, please hit the like button. Anyway, I digress. Got another super chat. This one's from Big Money Sonny, my guy, Big Money Sonny. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Holmes is our number one corner, Lou. Or stop playing, Lou. Again, by the time they're done, getting this roster where it needs to be, he shouldn't even be an afterthought. He shouldn't even be in the first 5, honestly. I would prefer him to be the 6th corner. If they want to go with 6 on the roster, knock yourself out. But I don't want him anywhere near the field right now. I'm not confident in Christian Holmes' ability to get the job done. And so I know they're going to do something. It's just how much are they going to do is the question. So we will see. Anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me. Don't forget, I will be live later on tonight with your man, Rio, and Street Scores, Rico, over on Rio's channel. So check that out at 9 p. We'll be on Rio's channel, chopping it up, talking about this roster, probably Brian Robinson and anything else under the sun. So if you're not doing anything tonight at 9 o'clock, pull up. You know what it is. We're going to hold it down, post up. You know what it is. So with that said, I am a Washington fan. Etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, post up. Take command. I will tell you guys this. We will be live tomorrow night. And it's going to be lit tomorrow night. I got a lot of things to say. I'm going to make my prediction for the season, my official prediction, tell you what I think is going to transpire and how it will transpire, and really prepare us for the season. This is our last week, essentially, without football. And then next week, you get a show every day, and you've been getting that almost exclusively the last 2 or 3 weeks, but you know what to expect. Nightly news will be back next week. We'll get back into a regimen. I'm live after every primetime game. You guys know how this goes. So we're live after the Washington game for, the Command post game live show. So next week it's on and popping. We bat like cooked crack. So this Wednesday is our last show of the Command Post live. So we're going to do it up. So I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow, 9:30 as we talk about Commanders and everything under the sun with this football team. And we'll see if they make any moves by then, that impact this roster. We'll talk about all of those things and then some tomorrow night. Anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. Until next time, you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Hopefully, I'll see you later on tonight. And you guys stay up. God bless and good night.